Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the BAFCA coaching convention for this year. I'm Adam Wilkin. I'm your host for today. No Mike here for this one, for our first live event, but he'll be here later on. But we've got some fantastic guests coming up in a second, and we're talking all about practice planning today. So without further ado, I'm just going to bring everyone straight into the stream. First up, we've got Wayne. Welcome to the stream. We've got Russ Hewitt. And we've got JB Wells. Hello, guys. You all right?
Yeah, we're all good, Adam. Thank you very much.
All good.
Thanks for putting this on, by the way, guys. Really appreciate it. We're going to go a quick elevator pitch from everyone just so to let people know who you guys are. So, Wayne, we'll start with yourself first.
Hi, everyone. I'm sure most people know me. I'm Wayne Hill. I'm the BAFCA president, but also head coach of GB students and linebacker coach on the Birmingham Lions women's team. So, heavily involved in football, as always, for a number of years.
If you're watching it, you're going to know who Wayne is, let's be honest.
I'm Russ Stewart. I've coached youth and junior football for quite a while now. I coach at the NFL Academy. I'm a linebackers coach, defensive coordinator of our U19 Great Britain team, and I'm a head coach and offensive coordinator at junior and youth football at Solent Seahawks.
And JB Wells, I'm calling in from the United States right now. I'm the head football coach at the Kingswood Oxford School, which is a private independent high school here in the States. But this will be my 30th year coaching football, 27 at the college level, 20 as a head coach at a couple different places. And happy to be here and continuing to be a member of BAFCA as the American member of BAFCA.
You got to fly that flag, JB. Fly the flag.
Yeah, definitely.
No, but so basically, today's discussion, we're talking about practice planning. So I'm going to open this up to everyone. Obviously, we've got what is practice planning to start off with. What should people be looking at? Wayne, I'll fire that over to you.
Yeah, sure. I think for me, it kind of starts with how it all kind of builds together with what your overall kind of philosophy is and what you're wanting to achieve. So how practice planning links with your install schedule, how practice planning relates to your scout and your game planning, but also most importantly, really, it's how your practice planning relates to your player development and really getting the players ready to play football. So we really want to make sure that those three elements are kind of key to everything we do in our preparation. And I think really preparation and organisation is about practice planning, that we turn up to a practice and we're organised, we're planned, we're ready to go. We know what we're going to achieve that day. We're able to be organised on the field with cones, bags, whatever equipment we need, so we can maximise the time on the field. Because in the UK, we haven't got a lot of time, so we need to maximise that time the best way possible. So that's kind of a brief overview of kind of my thought process on practice planning and how important it is.
Russ, over to yourself. Is there anything else to add there?
Really, it's just helping the players develop. So for us, it's always about structuring the day, working through at an install pace before we stretch. We were just chatting offline about, stretching and the time we put into that, but making sure build up through the day. So we do an install slow pace before they warm up, then stretch individuals every day, as we'll get into in a little minute, and then structure the whole day. So they build on their development. A defensive coach, so it's all about this, what they see, how they structure it, where their eyes are, and how they read and play. So we build a lot of our structure through that.
JB?
Yeah, I think as I've kind of come through, the years, I've changed my mind on kind of, what practice really means to me. I think that, football practices and practice plans have not really changed in 40 years. I mean, I could probably go back and pull, my high school practice plans from when I played in the 80s. And, you could probably match that up and put it over on top of one from now, and they look pretty much the same. The things that I kind of think about when I think about practice planning is, for me, practice is about getting ready to play a game, getting ready to win a game in a week, and figuring out what the team needs to win that. So, my thing with practice planning is I'm looking for, like, and this is Wayne and I have talked about Tony Holler, who's a guy over here now that is kind of, had some radical ideas over the last few years about practice, and I've kind of adopted a lot of them. And he really believes in like the maximum, or the minimum effective dose. I call it the maximum minimum. Like, what do we need to win the game? What do we need to develop our players and to prepare our players to win the game? And then structuring our practices to do that. And there's certain things that we look for. There's certain things we're always going to do. But we're not going to get too far outside of that. So if it doesn't help us win the game, we throw it out of practice. And so a lot of those things that maybe were sitting on a practice plan 10, 20, 30 years ago, we don't even look at them anymore. We don't even do it. And so that to me is kind of how practice planning has changed, is what's going into the practice is a little bit different in terms of volume.
Perfect. So that's going to lead us over to something else that we want to talk about. It's a term that we use a lot, and it's everyday drill. Some people, if you're looking in coaching forums and things, it'll be EDs, Ds. It's hard to say that when you're a Geordie, by the way. Right, so EDDs for people. What is this? What is an everyday drill? We'll fire that over to Russ first.
For us, we're taking athletes that have never played the sport, so they don't even understand what stance and movement and everything else are. So I always structure, and it's maybe 2 minutes to the start of the drill, but making sure that I get all their footwork, their stance, their alignments correct, and just get them through quick movement. You see Pete Carroll run it, the Seahawks. They start everything at high pace and movement. But I want to make sure my guys are structured and they have a time where we can get something in every single day. And then we start building towards the must for each position, whether it's a defensive back and T-stepping and changing direction, or linebackers or get-offs. So those are the things. You structure it based on what they need to learn. But I always start with something like that to make sure the young players get their muscle memory and understanding what they're doing, so they can play naturally, change direction at full speed. And then we build up through the week of planning. And then if it's a Sunday only practice, we have it nice and short, but because you only have 2 hours. But if I'm coaching high school right now, so I get 6 hours with them, so it's a lot different. I can do a lot more things through the day. And it's how you time it up.
JB, over to you.
Yeah, I agree with Russ. I think that at the high school level here, I think I'm probably as close to British football as possible. Guys that haven't played before, learning the game for the first time, maybe coming to the game, really late, and needing to learn that. So I'm with Russ. Like I spend more time with the everyday. To me, is just making sure that they're all getting in a good, consistent stance, that they have efficiency of movement, and that goes into some of the beginning parts of our practice now, maybe more than it did when I was a college coach. When I was getting those guys in college, they were pretty accomplished as players, and so you didn't have to spend as much time with that. So maybe everyday drills was different for the college game. But I think for the high school game, I think it would probably mirror what Russ is talking about pretty closely. Just making sure that they can move effectively, that they understand body position, because that's if they don't get that, then the rest of the stuff doesn't matter. So I'd say that to me is an everyday drill. Maybe not a drill, but it's everyday instruction that they need. And so that's what I think of as an everyday thing.
Yeah. Wayne, yourself?
Yeah, I think kind of tying into that, I agree with kind of Russ and JB, but for me, it's that might start the drill off, but I'm a little bit kind of conflicted in the whole everyday drill aspect, because I think people think, right, okay, these drills I have to do every single practice, but actually it might just be the starting point of the drill or a little reinforcement point of the drill. So kind of what Russ said about it might be the stance and the read step and a little bit of a movement activity, but how I kind of adapt that drill and then reinforce different aspects of the drill moving forward, and I adjust it slightly to also keep it interesting, because we want to be able to kind of keep the players interested, and also we haven't got a lot of time. So if I'm taking 5 minutes or 10 minutes of every single individual period that I have based upon lead steps and movement drill and a slides and an alley drill for a linebacker, if that's all I'm doing for that period, then that's going to be a bit of a struggle every week in and week out. They're going to be great at those things, but actually I'm going to lose a lot of time on block destruction and other kind of aspects of the game. So how can I build those movements of everyday drills and those instructions into every element I want to work on? So yes, it might be a starting point of a drill, but actually the drill really is to focus on block destruction, but it has a read step and a movement phase, which actually then has an end point that I'm focusing on. So I think really for everyday drills, it's more for me about kind of everyday kind of concept. And these are the concepts that I want to kind of work on week in, week out that will support the player's development. But actually, there's a whole bunch of those kind of techniques and skills that we need to kind of build on for that player.
So how much, when you practice plan, how much time would you put into, like how much time would you allow in your whole practice schedule for your everyday drill, we'll say? We'll fire that over to JB. You can answer this one first.
Yeah, I think the way that we've been looking at restructuring things, because we have a small roster, right, is that we have a small roster with a limited coaching staff. I mean, is this sounding familiar to like everything that we've ever talked about? Right? Wayne and Russ and I have talked about this stuff before, right? Every British coach I've ever talked about has said this. And like when I was coaching in college, I'm like, what? I got nine assistant coaches and I got 100 players. What do you guys? It's easy. When you get down to 2 knowledgeable coaches and then some other guys that are learning how to coach, and then you got 40 players and maybe 10 of them really are experienced to a level that they're proficient. We spend more time on the everyday. I hate calling it every day. I think it's I think my definition of like an everyday drill is a fundamental skill drill. So Wayne mentioned block destruction. Okay, so when we do block destruction, we might take the 3 block destruction drills that we really like, and we kind of team teach that so that myself and the other experienced coach can kind of oversee while the other coaches are kind of really coaching the players. So we're coaching everybody, players and coaches, and the new coaches are coaching the players, and we'll try to do those things in blocks. So it depends on how long it takes us to get through that. If we say that we have our 3 block destruction drills that we'd like to do that day, that are our core block destruction drills, that to me is an everyday drill for the team, a team fundamental. So we're going to put that in at the beginning. It might take us longer to do it. It might take you 20 minutes at the beginning to really get through that so they understand it. But as they get better, you can transition through maybe a 3 drill circuit kind of thing, 10 minutes. I mean, that's ambitious sometimes, but we're going to block that out on how much time it takes. So it could be 20 minutes. It could then reduce to 15. It could reduce to 10 as we go into things. But our everyday drills are kind of our fundamental drills built into those blocks. So it's like tackling, block destruction, turnover drill, our blocking drill, and our catching drill. So if you took those 5 things, we team teach those, and then, like I said, we'll probably build it in there as that's a 20-minute block in this part of practice to get that done that day. So Monday might be block destruction, Tuesday might be tackling, Thursday, Wednesday might be turnover stuff, and that's how we build that in. That becomes our everyday stuff. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah,
that's perfect.
I think for me on that, JB, and we've spoken about this before, it's that kind of, I really do believe kind of the block destruction, the blocking and the tackling are like really those fundamental elements that we need to have the whole team undertake on a regular basis, whether that's every practice or every other practice. But I mean, we're always scampering for time for special teams, and that's exactly what special teams are focused on, those 3 elements. But also, if we can't block as an offense, then we're not going to score a lot of points. If we can't tackle as a defense, then there's no point in being out there. It's going to be like a ghost defense out there. So they're the actual, away from X's and O's, they're the 2 things that are really going to impact on whether we win or lose the game. So if we can incorporate those there, that's going to be really important. And what kind of JB said, and we've got a talk coming up, I think it's later on tonight or tomorrow, relating to special teams practice planning. It's also about using the correct language across the entire program and terminology. So as JB was saying, is that if my offensive coaches are coaching blocking and my defensive coaches are there to assist and support, that terminology on blocking, it can be utilized across everything we do in the program, or that terminology across tackling can be utilized across everything we do in the program. And I think that the terminology aspect and being able to develop that understanding across all the coaches is so key to these kind of everyday fundamental aspects of the game.
Yeah, 100%. It's and you hit on it exactly, and that's that. I was sitting there going, well, that's exactly what we do in special teams as well. And you stealthily start teaching, a fundamental to a running back, and then tackling and everything else. And one of my youth coaches we did exactly the same at that level, under 13s, 14s, and 15-year-olds, and quarterback throws an interception, and we got photos and videos of great form tackling by wide receivers. And they look at you at practice like, why am I doing this? I'm a receiver, because they're like 14 years old. They don't realize what you get in when you do it as a whole team, as a whole unit.
I like that. I like the idea of everyone taking part in it. I think it's a great idea. A question on the whole planning itself. Do you plan everything down to even things like water breaks and things like that? Do you allow yourselves like an extra time in the session to have for a water break, or do you give yourselves a little leeway in case you need to spend a bit longer on a drill, things like that? I'll fire that over to you, Wayne.
Yeah, I think for me, it's every aspect is kind of detailed and timed in that practice plan. So whether it's a water break, whether it's a scout period, whether it's going to be a service period, whatever it might be, we're rigorous with our timings there. And I think the one thing that I hate in any practice planning, and I've caught myself doing it, and looking back on it, it's one of the things that I stomped out when I was a young head coach, should I say, many moons ago. But when I've been a defensive coordinator or a positional coach, and then the head coach shouts over to you and turns around and says, you've got an extra 10 minutes in that individual period, or you've got an extra 20 minutes in there. You're like, hold on a sec. I'm like, I've planned for 20. I'm like, keeping to time. And then all of a sudden you've given me an extra 10 or 20 minutes to go in there. Like, we're moving on from this early. That really kind of frustrates me, because I really need to make sure that I am as planned and organised as possible in my periods. And if we're kind of jumping around extra time here and there, then the plan wasn't right in the first place, and somebody hasn't kind of been organised on it. So yeah, that's something that I think we need to. That's one of my pet peeves, but I've caught myself doing it many moons ago as well.
Russ, yourself?
Yeah, I'm smiling because we structured everything out. You have set number of minutes. Water breaks, we would each positional coach would handle themselves. We have water butts around the field because of COVID. Now everyone has their own water bottle, right? And so it's been crazy planning, different this year. So everyone has their own, but you make sure they have enough time to fill it up in between reps. But yeah, we're very precise with it. We keep records of it. I think it's people don't handle a lot of paper out anymore, but it's really important to have your everydays, your practice plans planned. Just a spreadsheet, just to have a look at. I hate phones, but we have it on paper format. It's much easier because people aren't on their phones. But you have that, and then you go back to refer to it. So if we're practicing every week, once a week, you can at least know what the 3 things you plan to do in your 15 minutes. You can remember what your installations were. It's just a review, so you don't get into a rut, like Rain was saying, doing the same thing over and over again and losing players' interest.
JB?
Yeah, we even went to as far as building in like a halftime in practice. And we kind of went through like almost halftime mechanics in the middle of practice. It was kind of just a natural transitional period between kind of your individual type stuff, your group type stuff, into your team type stuff. It was always that we created this break. So, I would try to put like a special teams before it. So maybe like we'd have like kickoff return, and then maybe we'd start with kickoff after. So we were kind of building in the players' minds like a transitional period at halftime. And that helped us during the season, because I could then take that time and we'd get together as a coaching staff, the kids would get water, and then we could have the offensive coach talk to the guys, or the defensive coach talk to whatever our focus in the day. So it was almost like halftime. Hey, this is what we're going to go do. You kind of prepped them, and then they went into the second half of practice. So I think even building in some of those sorts of things were kind of helpful to us as in terms of practice planning, because we do micromanage that time as much as we can. We've been like, it's going to be interesting, Russ, because we haven't had a practice yet where, we're out of COVID kind of. So it's going to, because I would always have water everywhere around the field and just like, go get water when you need it. Like, you need a squirt, grab a squirt.
We've been doing
but
that.
now
We had big butts up, but they have to then pull their own water bottle.
Yeah.
We're not handing the water bottles out, but yeah.
got to come out with their gallon. Like all my guys have gallon jugs, and they do it like that. So that'll be a conversation with our athletic trainer on kind of how we're going to handle it, which I think is going to be that. But that ability to like work in some of those breaks. So if we put a water break at like the end of the first quarter, a halftime, and a water break at the end of the third quarter of practice, it just kind of puts the guys in those. Again, you're teaching them the flow of a game during your practice. So that really made a big difference for us. I think a couple of years ago was having that halftime of practice. That's not as long; it's still a short period, but halftime in practice was something that we worked in there too. That was a little different because, like I said, we're micromanaging all the time. So,
yeah.
Here's a question I'm going to ask in a second. Sorry, Wayne. Carry on. I'll ask my question.
I was going to just jump in with that because we did that at University of Birmingham, and it was the players really enjoyed it because it was a bit of downtime for them, and coach could get together and we could review. But the other thing was, it is the ebbs and flows of a game, isn't it? Like there are times when that offense is going to be on the sideline for 5 to 10 minutes, or the defense is going to be on that sideline, and as soon as they cross back onto the field, they need to be ready to go. So that's something that the focus for us was to have that in there to replicate that downtime that you would have on the sideline during a game. But then also how I've kind of developed on that is to look at how we practice, and then our drills are really precise in kind of those. I don't want drills and kind of the aspects of a player in a drill longer than 6 seconds, because that's kind of the time frame of a play. So I really want my players to be within that drill period for that period of time, working as hard as they can for that period of time, and have those complete repetitions with short breaks in between, because again, that's replicating the game situation as well. So to be able to do that, and then just tying into kind of Russ's point of kind of review and analysis, that's one of the big things for me is kind of as soon as I leave practice on a Saturday, and I've had this discussion with the Birmingham Lions women's coaches this year, is as soon as I leave that practice on a Saturday, that is my time then in the car going home to review that practice. So did we need more time in individuals? How did we get on in the versus period? What do we need to work on for next week? How did my planning of my individual drills, did I get over my coaching points? And then straight away when I'm home, I'm kind of hassling the DC and the head coach with kind of my review to say, this is actually what I did. I think we need to do this next time. Actually, can I get an extra 5 minutes in individuals? Because I think that will help us moving forward. But that kind of review process is really important. And then I think having that to look back on, what did we do last time we had Hertfordshire in a game, and what was our game week like, or what did we do last time we had 2 weeks off, and what did our practice schedule look like last year? I think that's all really important to be able to go back and reflect and review and see about things there.
Something that I was wanting to ask, which every time I speak to a coach, I normally get a different answer to the last guy that I spoke to. But when we're talking about practice plan and things now, how do you guys start your practice? I'll fire that over to JB first. How would you start your practice? Like the first, let's say, I don't know, first half an hour of your practice, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, so I've eliminated the word warm up out of anything that we do, because the mental picture that goes in a kid's head when he hears warm up, it's jack around time. It's waste of time. So the way that we've kind of moved towards starting practice is a little bit different now. So we have a 0 period, and so that's before they can get onto the field. There's things that we want them to do that'll prepare them for practice. So that's like the beginning part. I mean, it's 0 period, but it's kind of starting at, like, we started practice at 3:30, 0 periods at 3:30. It's still part of practice, but we're telling them it's not. It's a whole mind screwing with their heads, right? So, but the way that we kind of start things up is that we've really gotten into using reflexive performance reset with our guys, which is, I know Wayne and I have talked about this. It's like they kind of, their wake up drills where they're kind of stimulating parts of their, like rubbing on their sternum does this, rubbing on the back of their head does this. And when I first heard about it, I kind of thought it was crazy, but we've kind of bought into it. And since we bought into it and the players have bought into it, we don't stretch at all, Adam. There is zero stretching in practice, none whatsoever. We RPR, we do a hip mobility routine, and then we get into practice. It's like, we do a little neurological wake up too. That's a little bit funky and weird, but this RPR thing, no soft tissue injuries, no muscle pulls in a year of doing it. And I mean, we're running to be fast and do those sorts of things. So we start with RPR. We go into our neurological wake up, which is a little kind of mirror thing with the guys. It just kind of gets their brains kind of firing. They do their hip mobility routine, and then we are right into it. We're getting into our lines. And the way that we train now is we still train just like in the off season. We train for speed. Our practice is all based around getting faster. And I never want to take that away just because we're in a football season. So we'll start practice with, we have 10 speed drills that we do consistently every single time that we do this. It teaches the guys how to run. It teaches mechanics, and it helps them get faster. Then based on the day, we're either going to be in a sprint day mentality or we're going to be in what we call an X factor mentality, which is a change of direction mentality. So you can get kind of deep into this, but we're gonna spend the first part of practice. You said a half an hour. I bet you the first half an hour of practice, maybe 20 minutes of practice, we can get it into that, is going to be from RPR to the end of their sprint drills or their X factor drills for the day, which is basically just teaching them how to sprint and be fast and get faster, or how to change direction quickly and violently and how to do that better. Then once that's done, that's probably first quarter. Now we're going to get into football practice. So they all know that we're going to, like, it's track practice at the beginning and it's football practice from then on, and it's been really good for us. So that's how we start. And the guys always know we're starting with speed. We're starting with change of direction. There are things that they know, and we're coaching the hell out of that. That actually will make us better as things move along, because that's teaching you body mechanics and how to move and how to sprint and how to change direction. Then everything else is built off of that. So that's where we start. But it starts with this RPR. I'd encourage anyone to look into this. I don't get paid by anybody for it. I'm not sponsored by them. But since we've gone to it, it's changed how our guys feel. They're just fresher. They're better. They're more ready.
Just putting this out there, JB. Expect a text from me. Expect a text from me after this. I want to know more.
Yeah, no, I've got some great. One of my assistant coaches is he's a physician's assistant in his real life, but he's a great football coach, and he's really into the strength and conditioning. And so he and I researched this. Then he went out and got a certification in it. So he's really into it. So we have videos we send our players so they can follow it. They should be doing it all the time. And it's funny, the 2 muscle pulls that we've had this off season so far, one was from a kid that also plays baseball. He was beating out a triple in his baseball league in the summer, pulled his hamstring going from second to third. Did you RPR before the baseball game? No. There you go. And then I got a big fat lineman who could be a pretty good player. Now, if I have him sprint, he can't run more than 17 miles an hour, right? We measure this. We have a laser time. We measure this. He can't run that, but he wants to run 17 miles an hour, right? So what does he do? He goes with his stupid trainer, who's getting paid just to kind of wear him out, put him on a treadmill, crank the thing up to 17 and a half miles an hour, tried to get the kid to run 17, blew his hamstring. So did you RPR before that session? No. There you go. So I don't know. I don't know if it's true or not, but we don't have any problems except when the kids go and work with other people. When they're working with us, it's fine.
Pretty smug there then, JB, right?
I am being awful smug, but it's true. It's like, I can't believe it. Like, it's one of those things where I literally can't believe that we're not pulling kids' hamstrings when we sprint as much as we do and as hard as we do. But that's how we start practice, Adam. I think it's like we take this training mentality at the beginning because we know that we're only going to get them for so much time. I'm at least going to make you faster. So you might be a shit football player, but you'll get there in a hurry, and at least that's good. So
I like that. Wayne, over to you.
Yeah, I think I've done it in a couple of different ways, depending on what team we had. So a little bit kind of like what JB said was at the University of Birmingham when we were there, we never used to stretch. We kind of graduated practice. So we'd start things off at kind of half speed and then 3/4 and then get into full speed. Part of the reason for that was kind of we just didn't have a lot of time. So that 2 hours on the field on a Thursday night, we needed to make sure that we utilize that as much as possible to get everything done. And then when we were in season with that, we'd probably take kind of what JB said as like a 0 period. We'd have that as a kind of an install or game plan aspect to the start of practice. That first kind of 10 minutes would be a review of kind of anything new we were putting in for the game plan or any kind of adjustments we got. And the reason for that, we wanted it at the start of practice was we wanted to be able to get the recall right when we went to practice, when we went to kind of pass scale or inside run or scrimmage, because players that need to get that mental recall for when that play is called or whatever else. And if we're doing it straight before scrimmage, then there's no need for their recall because it's fresh in their mind. So we want them to be able to recall when it's not fresh in their mind. So that was part of the reason that we did that. With the Birmingham Lions women's team now, we start with kind of like a dynamic stretch. But what we've included into there is a lot of football movement patterns. So kind of swoop and shimmy and re-accelerate aspects. So then I don't need to coach those when it comes to blocking and tackling. And then also we've included some of the prep for contact stuff. So some of the kind of the bear crawl stuff, some of the wrestle aspects. So we kind of start in practice off that first kind of 10, 15, 20 minutes there. And then we're kind of either moving into individuals or we're moving into those team fundamentals, which are more blocking and tackling elements, team orientated. But we're also at the moment in the pre-season element doing a lot more of that kind of prep for contact aspects with the wrestling and the kind of the bear crawl stuff. And the players are really enjoying it. And we're seeing a lot of benefits from the tackling that we're seeing in scrimmage and versus periods.
Brilliant, man. Bruce, over to you.
Yeah, it's going to be exactly the same, but we start with a pre-practice period. So it is the 0 period that coach is talking about, where we just get the players, they get a trainer, so they know about their core activation, their hip flexibility, get that started and rolling. We have an installation period because we come straight out of the classroom. We've had 45 minutes of class. We've reviewed, and then we get through that by their movement structure, so they can actually put it into action. They've watched it on film and they can move. That's our pre-practice element, and then we will get into the dynamic warm-up. So, and that is, I was smiling because what JG was saying, we work all the sprint mechanics, all the things they haven't really been taught in their life, their foot strike, foot placement, how to stride, how to high knee. So we do it for everyone right at the start of practice, in lots of active lines, lots of movement. So there's so people are moving a lot, and they're just naturally warming up, and that rolls straight in. It takes probably 10 minutes tops to get 85 players through, and then they've done all their movements, and everyone's done the same thing, but it's really thrown up on the laser timing. We've had players 5 seconds drop 0.3 off their 0.3 off their 40s. So it's been really dramatic improvement by teaching those type of things. And then we get into Indy, and then we build the day from there. So yeah, we start a very similar way.
Love it.
It's the Bob Wiley O-line coach Hard Knocks deal, isn't it, as well? Like in World War I and World War II, you didn't see those guys stretching when they were running across the field.
Push-ups, sit-ups, climb the rope. Push-ups, sit-ups, climb the rope. Won 2 World Wars. Undefeated. 2 World Wars.
But then the other one to that was before that came about. I spent some time with Mike Leach when he was at Texas Tech, and they never used to stretch that to start practice there. And his kind of analogy was like, you never see that lion in the Serengeti warming up to take that zebra down or that. So he's like, they're never stretching. They're just out there kind of lurking around, and they're just ready to go. So there's no lunges there or kind of static stretches going on in the Serengeti either.
No laps around the field either.
No
laps around the field.
Never.
Wasting my time. Unless someone's going to run around to the ambulance to get
I'm changing. I'm going to change from next week. You'll see, guy. I'm sorry. Right, no more laps. Maybe.
It's not an off period for you, Adam. It's not an off period.
Do an extra one. Just do an extra one just to be different.
Yeah, you know what? You're getting 12 laps now, right? We're doing it different. I can already sense my signals going here, by the way, so I'm going to apologize if it's getting a bit crackly for everyone. I don't know what's going on. But I'm going to come back to the whole everyday drill section that we talked about before. How often would you change your everyday drill or your practice schedule? How often is this sort of changing? I'm going to head this over to Wayne first.
I think it depends on how quickly the players are kind of settling into the development or the picking up of the skill or technique, and actually how quickly can I move them on into the next phase of that technique. But I'd want to be changing an aspect of the skill, fundamental or technique on a regular basis. But one of the things that I've got is kind of like a matrix with all of my drills kind of down one side and the focus points of all of those. And then at the end of each practice, when I come home, I'll just tick off which ones I've done that week. And that's part of my review to see actually, do I need to keep on with that one for the next couple of weeks, or actually can we move on to the next development phase? So it's all about that kind of progression and regression of the play development and the drills that you're doing. So how quickly can I move my players on, or do I need to hold my players at this period so they can really develop that fundamental, or do I need to actually take it back a step? And I think that's something that we need to make sure that we're not afraid to take it back a step, because if the players aren't picking it up and aren't mastering that skill, then there's no point in moving them on too early.
Yeah, fully agree. You have to relate
Definitely.
to what you see.
Russell, what are you?
Yeah, you have to relate to what you see them doing. We film everything to making sure they're actually doing that. I'm blessed to have a big group of linebackers for the academy. So we have units, as in depths of units. It's not depth chart, but it's their abilities, and they have different levels as well. Like Wayne was saying, they may learn at a different rate. So one group may be able to move on very slightly, and where the others need a little bit more time. So it's going to be how good they are and how quickly they progress. So I would change an element of one of my drills, probably three a practice. I'll change at least one of them every day, every time we go back to the field, or a tweak. So it changes or it makes another step into their progression. And if I have to hold someone back, and I'm not scared of keeping them closer together and keeping the contact lower and the position, to get things technically right, so they don't actually lose and slide away when problems go around by speeding up too fast.
JB, over to you.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think we're all in agreement, right? You don't want to progress guys too fast into something that they're not capable of doing, and then you're doing something poorly. I remember one of my coaches just told me that, had told me a long time ago, football is about boring repetition. Like at the core of what we need to do, it's finding the things that are going to work to teach the drill and to repeat them over and over and over again. And, we don't want to lose the players, but at some point, I think players have to acknowledge that this is the thing that's going to make them a solid football player. So I tend to change things. I'm very, very slow to change out of what we've determined to be, let's say, those 3 great tackling drills that we like, or those 3 great blocking drills that we like. If that's the base, that is the definition of like every day to me. Like, it's the most basic fundamental stuff. I'll be very, very hesitant to change that at all. Now, as we're progressing into different parts of practice, well, yeah, you're going to be able to move some kids along a little faster. And Jim McNally told me one time, which players do you need to coach? And so I was a younger guy, and I was like, well, you got to coach the younger guys because they don't know what they're doing. He's like, no, you got to coach the older guys because they're going to play in the game. And so, it's kind of that dichotomy. It's like that weird kind of gray area that we live in, is that we're like teachers in a classroom teaching to the lowest common denominator, but you don't want to lose the talented kid. So I think sometimes I'll take some extra time maybe with those really talented guys off to the side because they can do it. But I tend to not move on from really basic stuff because that's the foundation of football. So it's kind of like I don't move on from how I teach speed training. Like, we don't mess with those drills. Those are time tested, mother approved. Like, that's going to work. The basic fundamental drills that we teach as a team, those aren't going to change. Everybody needs to do that stuff. But then as we would progress off of that, then we'd start to graduate kids into different things by ability levels. I don't have anybody that's like, tremendous, that I have to teach them completely different. I can take those couple of kids off to the side and say, we're going to work a little something different here because you're ready for it. But the majority of my guys are going to be, newbies, young kids. They just need to keep doing this. And then maybe when you're a junior or a senior, we can graduate into things. But keeping things basic has never failed anybody ever. If they can do the basics, you got a chance.
Perfect. The next thing I want to go into, if you can still see, is I know that the camera's playing up a little bit, so I do apologize. We want to talk about decision making for players. So do you have like practices that are more game like, or how would you go about, like, I don't know, teaching decision making for players? How would you do that? I'll fire that over to Russ first.
Defensively, we try and challenge them to understand how to line up, how to play against an offense. So we would set a rule in their development. So they run a certain coverage to a certain formation. And they have to then recognize that pre-snap as the no-huddle team, call it, align it. The linebacker's got to set the front for us, little things like that to help them. And then it's a matter of, we're kind of a zone match defense. So you're trying to play stuff where they're teaching them the skills to understand what they have to do. And that all comes into their decision making, and never be scared of them making mistakes. Challenge them to play fast. Challenge them to, that was the trigger. That's the trigger you should have seen. You froze for a second, and you help them with game review. So decision making goes into a lot of things, but it starts right from the get go from us. And these are players that have never lined up in 11-man football. So their recognition and what they can pull up and how quickly they can look right, it really impressed us. So it's really challenged us. And then we do go into game calling later. We do go into game planning and calling, and the coaches taking control. And we have two approaches to it. But it's been really, really beneficial for their decision making, their recognition, and how they play with their eyes is the biggest thing defensively.
Perfect. Wayne, what about yourself?
You're on mute, Wayne.
You're muted, Wayne.
You're muted there, Wayne.
Sorry, I'm on it. Sorry, apologize for that. Yeah, I think for me, probably take it even down kind of the further step into kind of the drill aspect of things and that as well, of trying to create the drills to be as game-like as possible and allow players to have to make decisions. Because even when it comes to kind of what block destruction they're going to use, or what angle and where their leverage is, and if we can have those things within our kind of drills, that's going to be really important for them as well, because the more recognition they have of certain game-like situations, that's just extra reps for them. And we can get a situation where they can understand where their leverage point is, or understand, actually, if I'm in this position, I can actually just out-athlete the offensive lineman rather than have to take on a full kind of block destruction. So to be able to kind of put them in kind of positive and negative positions, that they can have that decision-making within their drills, I think it's really important as well, because yes, as coaches, we're going to call the play on the sideline on game day or in that scrimmage period, but actually how the player gets from A to B, so how it aligns kind of what Russ said with kind of their keys and their reads and where their eyes go, but actually how they get there, how they move there, is kind of vitally important as well. And they're going to have to make multiple decisions along the way. So how we can get those reps in there to allow those multiple decisions to be made, I think is vitally important as well.
I'm just going to apologise for this camera of mine. I do apologise. I don't know what's going on.
We can hear you fine. So it's all good.
Fantastic.
That's all right. You got a face for radio. It was fine.
I know it's good, isn't it? So, JB, I think am I left with you to answer the question? I don't know what I've missed. I don't know what's going on. I've had to leave, come back.
Yeah, getting players ready to make decisions. I think that's kind of where, looking at your practice plan for the week and kind of saying, do we, how we spend our Monday practice, what are we focusing on there? Well, maybe that's early downs. Tuesday's practice might be a little more red zone focused. Thursday's practice might be. So I think it's kind of like figuring out the situations that players are going to be in offensively and defensively. And then figuring out what your team needs to learn with that. I've always felt like the first part of the week is kind of internally focused because a lot of stuff, first and second down, anybody can figure out first and second down. I think that's kind of cut and dry. And it's almost like I used to always say it's KO versus KO football in the beginning part of the week. And then we would transition more into probably like a lot of the things. And I think this is more defensively related than anything. Is like making sure that the players can, in an environment where they can fail or make a mistake, identify those things. One thing that we will do that's kind of a neat little thing in practice that we've done is when I've had enough guys, now I don't do it as much, but when we were split squad and had two groups, the offense could be free to get into any formation, work all their motions, work all their shifts, and then the defense would just be calling their defense and adjusting to those things. So it was a way for us to take a 5 minute period, whatever, and we'd script it out as coaches a little bit. The defensive coaches always didn't want me to let them know what was going on. They liked it that it was like, hey, all of a sudden we could be an empty with a motion and they got to figure it out. But we would progress through that like, hey, team jumps out in a 2x2. This is our main call. This is how we do. Oh, they went in motion. This is the check. And so that at least got our guys to get lined up. Maybe they're not deciphering exact plays. That's going to be at a different time in practice. But at that beginning time where it's kind of like recognition and kind of getting their assignments down, the offense then can say, hey, we really want to work on, making sure we got all our motions. And so we say, hey, we're going to work on motion today. And the defense has to adjust to that. I think that those things are good for the players because, I always say, like, if we're all wrong, we're all right. But if one guy's wrong, we're screwed. So we want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And that was kind of a neat way to kind of be in a situation where they got to do again, we're going back to basics, right? How to get lined up if it's basic, how to get lined up if they motion. And then we'll worry about how to decipher, hey, when they get into bunch, they love to run this. When they get into two back, their favorite play is this. That absolutely is like so important to defense. But I try to make it a little bit more beginning of the week, internally focused, and then kind of on Wednesday, we'll start to shift our focus to our opponent. Because as long as we're not beating ourselves, we got a chance. So
I fully agree, Coach. And you get those situations sometimes where they don't even understand when to make those calls, right? Those adjustments. Right. And you got to go through that with them. And it's something that came up with us. When we sit back at the end of the year and all of a sudden an empty comes out and they make a change of call on the field and you're like, wow, okay. And that's before the snap. And there's 17, 18-year-old young men. And then it's gone in. The recognition's gone in. So
right. And it's just it's like anything else. It's like, oh, we're doing this again? Yeah, we're going to do it again because it can't ever hurt you. You're bored because you can get it all done. Good for you. And a lot of times if we got a guy that can get it all done that knows it, get his ass out of there and put in the kid that can't and just let him take all the reps. There's some point in the year where I feel like your starting defense maybe has gotten it and they don't need the reps as much. Like one of my friends says, hey, he keeps his players like chained up. Starting defense got 3 reps and the backup defense got 10. Well, why'd the backups get 10? Well, you know what to do. I'm going to make you kind of anxious and wanting to get it. And then Saturday or Sunday or Friday night, whatever, I'm going to let you loose. So, it's getting the players what they need and just kind of like, I really believe, I think if you make it basic and you work the basics, you never have any problems. It's where you try to get too much stuff going on. We always screw it up. Coaches screw up football. Players don't screw up football. Coaches screw up football.
Nice. You still there, Adam?
Yeah. I do. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah.
Another thing I'd like to ask. Yeah. I don't know if you can hear us. I'm hoping you can.
We can.
There may be a delay. Are you got us?
Yeah, we've got there's just a
Anyways,
delay.
I'm going to ask the question. Hope you can hear us. Basically, the next question I'm hoping to ask is about down and distance and field position. How much time do you spend? I'm loving my internet here, by the way. Basically, I just want to ask about how much time do you spend, maybe in red zone plays or on defense, coming in from a certain yardage. How much time do you spend on that?
I think if I'll start that off. I think for me, it's something that we've developed over time, and it'll depend on where you are in your kind of practice schedule and what phase of the season that you're in. But what I try and do is try and build the down and distance and the situational aspects up as we kind of move through pre-season into the season and go from kind of what JB and Russ were just saying about kind of those set positions, and so we've got our alignments right and our assignments and our adjustments right, and then build it up from there to have more kind of down and distance in there, and then move that on again into having kind of full situational. So that'll include a down and distance, that include a field position, that include a score, and that include a time frame as well, because I like to have those elements in there to not only challenge the players and it to be competitive for the players, but I also like it from the aspect of that's training the coaches to coach as well, where they have to call the appropriate plays within that drive situation that reflects, okay, we've got 4 minutes left on the clock, we're driving, we've got a 3-point lead, we want to keep the ball here, or we want to turn it over. So I wouldn't want to try and do those too early in whatever phase we're in, but I think we do need to get to that, and rather than just stay in down and distance for the entire season, have those full situational moments in Pascal, in inside run, and into scrimmage periods. I don't know what everyone else thinks on that.
Very, very similar. And we start out with the structure everyone else would do with 1-on-1, 7-on-7 inside run into team. But as they start to learn the progressions, then Coach TA Tony Allen is one of those guys that will then set circumstances. So we do team, but if you don't get a conversion on third, fourth down, it comes back, or we adjust. But what we got into at the end of the year was game situational. So you have everyone on the sideline, down and distance sets. We move the field progressively. So you're moving up and down the field. And then they have preset times in there for punt return. Now, it may only be a look team. It may only be the punt team and a fair catch, but it's substitutions, challenging the coaches to be aware of personnel, throwing in, because obviously it's a 3 or 4 down series. So you have first, second, third down, but then we need to pay attention to down and distance within that second part of the segment of practice. So you're going to change your front, or you're going to change how you're going to play on fourth down and preset. So some third downs are converted and you've got to think quickly and get first down as a coach and players. Sometimes it's fourth down. So the game situation really helps. Really prepared them, because if all you do at practice, and we only practice all year until the end, they're just going against each other all the time. OVD, OVD, OVD. And they don't understand the rest. They don't understand the camaraderie the game brings. You know what I mean? We didn't have the defense cheer for the offense or vice versa until we played these 2 games. It was strange. Inter-squad scrimmages, they didn't know how to cheer each other on, but the game situation really helped them get visual. And that was all set with down and distance. So 3 downs from backed up, 3 downs from 30, 3 downs from midfield, red zone, and then goal line, and build it in and add a field goal, add a punt or a punt return in the middle there.
Yeah, we've done one thing that we've always done since I've been a head coach is that we would kind of group. It was like I would refer to as a 2-play drive. So we would say, hey, it's 2nd and 10, 3rd and what's left. And so this got guys thinking in terms of, all right, it's 2nd and 10. We're going to try to get half back. That's kind of our thing. And then you could end up in 3rd and 1 and be bringing your big guys in for that, and the defense has got to adjust. Or you could get all of a sudden you're in 3rd and 10. Now what are we doing? We got to convert. And so, it made the coordinators, as the head coach, I would throw that out there, and I would just say, okay, it's 2nd in this and 3rd and what's left. It's 3rd in this, and then let's see what happens on 4th down. Are we going to – it might be a 1-play there. Are we going to be in a 2-play drive? So those sorts of things were kind of good from a from a head coach's standpoint to kind of see how your coordinators were going to react to those things. So it'd make them kind of have their go-to calls, not necessarily game planned, but hey, when we're in 3rd and 2, this is what we generally like to do. When we're in 2nd down and 10, this is what we generally like to do. So that was kind of a good way to kind of introduce the ideas of down and distance. You can just put it in the middle of the field. It doesn't matter where you're at. It's not kind of game like field zone dependent. The other thing that we would look at was, how much. I don't think you can do enough red zone work. Like I've always felt that anyone can call the middle of the field. Like it's on the 40, anyone can make that call. That's easy. Just pull a play out of your hat and go with it, right? And you talk to like guys like Chip Kelly and those sorts of things. They're like, just run another play. Who gives a shit? And they run 2 plays fast. And hey, where'd we go? Where'd we end up? But then when you get into the red zone, things get more specific. Defenses change. Where do they change? Like I think that those are things that are important for the guys to understand. Understand how the field shrinks. When you're coming out, there's a lot of room. And there's very specific things that you're going to do coming out. And I think coming out and going in, like if you put the ball on the 1 yard line either way, it might be the same offense. Because you got to get space or you got to score. But when you end up getting into the red zone, now all of a sudden things really change. And that's where you make your money, right? Like we want to score touchdowns, not field goals. And defenses want to bow up and at least force a field goal or getting the ball back on downs. So that to me was where we got really good at Endicott was we became a great red zone team. So we probably spent more time in the red zone just because that was what we determined to be important. But from a zone standpoint, that could be by day, but I think that I'd encourage try second and 10, 3rd and what's left. And it's a great little 2-play drill for teams. And we would do it where it was like, hey, the first offense against the first defense. Hey, first defense won. They got them off the field. Now the second offense and second defense come out, and you get a little competition between the offense and the defense to see how many points they can score off that. Did we do it? Oh, you got a point. If you did not do it, you didn't get a point. So
we've even done little things on that with scoring and stuff. We're keeping track of who wins the practice, the offense, defense. Yeah. And in my early days, like yourself, when you're trying to coach a whole program, I would have to do the whole defense, the whole offense in film sessions with coordinators, but only just 3 coaches. So we would let the winner choose what meeting time they wanted. Do they want the first meeting?
What I did was we used to keep score offense and defense, especially during preseason or during the spring where we'd have competitions. And we used to keep the score on the scoreboard throughout preseason. And the guys would look and be like, defense is up. They get to eat first. And so they got to go into the dining hall first. You see some pissed off human beings when they can't get in the dining hall. So that's a little motivation for the next day. Well, win the day and you get to go in first. That's the wait.
As offensive lineman, when there's only salad left, they're a bit of an issue.
Unbelievable.
I think the competition bit is really, really good. And I know I reached out to JB recently and Coach Rich Wurzel talking about scoring systems for kind of scrimmage periods and pass scale and whatever else. And I'm going to just check with Coach Rich Wurzel if I'm okay to share this. But he sent me a whole batch of different scoring systems that Boise run, that Oklahoma run, and really kind of how offense and defense can score through those periods. So I'll just check with him, and then if I can share that, I'll share that on kind of the BAFCA official page there. Just different ways to kind of really create as much competition as possible and how you can score things. So I think it was one of the studies that he does for Akron where they just wanted to see the most reflective way of kind of scoring. And he ended up with about 7 or 8 different options for me. So that was just a great thing to have a look at as well. So I'll get that posted if I'm allowed to from Rich, but I'm sure that will be fine. I know that Adam's had some kind of backwards and forwards internet issues going on here. But I mean, that should really be JB with his kind of tropical storm that he's got going out there. But his internet.
Wayne, the sun's out.
Oh. You're good then. You're good.
Going to the beach, baby.
Yeah, and we're getting that rain in 4 days' time.
Yeah, that's it. We're okay here for the next couple of days, but then it's going to come.
The one thing to add there, if I could, Wayne, with regard to the down and distance stuff, JB, we play five-a-side football for flag, and into our youth contact, a young age, and then women's and our lower division, under 19s, but Division 2, they play 7-a-side. So it's on a small compressed field. So a lot of things we've come up with is you have to get halfway in 4 downs. It's a 50-yard field. So it's 20 yards to halfway. Get halfway, you get another 4 to score. So, and it's just reminding the young guys that it's 6+ yards now down. 6+ to get you halfway, and those type of things just adds in. So we had a philosophy of 6+. So the young ones, when they come in, they understand, right, so we need a 5+, 6. Otherwise, you're going to turn over on downs. Because we get so fixated with 11-a-side football and the NFL and the college football. So our young structures, I think it's one thing we've really picked up on is them understanding what field position is even at a young age. And it just transfers as they go up through the program. Yeah,
because obviously we use those scoring systems for the offensive defensive scrimmage at the Birmingham Lions women's. And obviously that's 7-a-side there. So the head coach, Carl Lewis, kind of tweaked those a little bit. So I'll speak to Carl as well about seeing how he tweaked those and if we can share those with people as well, because I'm sure he'll be happy with that. But we'll get that shared and sorted. Russ, JB, always an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Hopefully we'll be online again soon. I really appreciate you agreeing to be on the BAFCA 2021 virtual convention again. JB, a long-time supporter of BAFCA, so we really appreciate that. And obviously, Russ is probably one of the hardest working men in football as we kind of move through. So everything that experience-wise, everything that you give back to the sport, we really appreciate it. And thanks so much for being on tonight. And hopefully at some point, Brick Balling will be able to pay for Adam's internet upgrade and get sorted there. But we appreciate Brick Balling being involved in the BAFCA convention this year and supporting that as well. So thank you very much, Adam and Michael, from that point of view. And hopefully now we'll be able to move on to the other recorded talks. And then we have a day of live events tomorrow. So hopefully members will jump on those live events tomorrow and then back onto the recorded talks ready for Sunday. So JB, again, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Russ, thank you very much. And I will speak to you all soon. Much appreciated.
All right, sounds good. Appreciate it. Thank you. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Speak tomorrow, buddy.
Take care.